there was a shaper in Ventura named Russell Hoyt, and he had a full scale factory on Ventura Avenue. He was building boards start to finish and had a CNC machine, a full glass shop, and I was just sweeping at his shop every few days after school in exchange for, like, if I did a certain number of hours, I would get a board,
Wow.
and equated to about 2 boards a year. So I was stoked. Um, so I would just sweep there. And at that time, I had started riding performance shortboards and was doing these scholastic contests around just up and down the coast, like locally.
Yeah.
The surfing was always super fun, but I remember it got to a point where I was super frustrated at myself all the time riding a shortboard because I felt like I like had all this drive and I felt like I wasn't, uh, what's the word? Like reaching my capabilities in surfing. And that's like all that mattered to me at that time. So I just, um, and then around that time, the movie Psychic Migrations came out, and the Ryan Birch part in that movie just blew my mind and all my friends at the time. And so all my friends and me started shaping out of Russell Hoyt's factory. He was kind enough to let us use his shop and teach us how to shape boards. And of course, we all shaped twin fin fishes. And and after riding that board and the experience of making that board with my friends, it just completely changed my mindset. And uh, I instantly was just like, what am I doing? Riding these performance shortboards, being bummed all the time. This is way more fun.
When you saw that section in that film, did you have any inclination to actually reach out and just order a board from Birch or get a twin from anybody else locally? I'm curious what it was that made you want to make one on your own.
I think just the fact that in that movie part, he made the board
Oh yeah.
and then surfed it flawlessly. That was super inspiring. That was just like the coolest thing I'd ever seen.
Wow.
So yeah, that's definitely what inspired me initially.
Okay. So you shaped that the twin fin modeled after the Birch. Who laminated that board? Did you have any interest in the entire process, or did you just shape it?
We just shaped it. I actually don't even know who laminated it. We shaped it and it got picked up, and a couple months later, it showed back up. Um, yeah, and then we just started surfing that. And I didn't even start glassing any boards until just a few years ago. I initially was just shaping.
Okay.
And I'm still learning a lot of the glassing and trying to develop that skill on my personal boards. And uh, but yeah, for the first while, I was just shaping.
Okay. And
Yeah,
do you remember the first board order that you got?
yeah. It was actually from Aton Osborne,
No
a pro
way.
surfer in Ventura. Yeah, it was super cool. He had just sent me a message, and I was thrilled. I was like, "Yeah, of course." He's a few years older than me, and I see him surfing all the time in Ventura. So, yeah, it was another twin fish, and I felt like at the time I was so hyped on that board. I felt like I started getting a little getting it down a little bit more. So yeah, it was cool.
How'd it feel to see him ride the board?
That was really cool.
Yeah.
It was, yeah, I feel like that was probably the first time that I saw someone ride one of my boards. And it was a cool experience because you know what, like you studied the whole thing as you shaped it, and you know exactly what it looks like in the lights and like where the rail's tucked, how deep roughly the concave is. And so you're watching him ride it, and you're in your mind, you're instantly, I mean, with anyone, it goes with anyone, you're instantly learning, like, okay, I remember how that was in the shaping room, and I see what they're doing right now. Like, and you're kind of instantly learning all these little
Hmm.
things. So it was a really cool experience.
Yeah, really interesting. Um, when did it become a viable kind of career path for you that you might be able to make a living doing?
I mean, throughout high school, I would go up and watch Ryan Lovelace shape up in Santa Barbara
Okay.
and learn just a bunch from him. After just a few years of going up and watching him shape, just got a call from Ryan one evening, and he asked me if I wanted to start shaping for Trimcraft, and that I was so thrilled. Yeah, it was cool. um, and so it started every. I think at first I was doing one or two every month, and then like once a month I would go up there I had my license at that time. I'd drive up, bring up the Haley pin. It was one model I would shape called the Haley pin,
Mhm.
which is the thick Lizzie model that Ryan shapes just under the Trimcraft label, and
Gotcha.
it's called the Haley pin. Um, I'd bring them up, and Ryan would just go over them with me, show me what I needed to improve, touch them up, and then give me two more blanks, and I'd see him in a couple weeks. So, and then when COVID hit, it started just kind of going really busy, and then that's when it really started. I started doing it a lot more.
Um, how did you meet Ryan Lovelace, and was he receptive to that first, I mean, did you reach out to him, and was he receptive to what you wanted to do? Come up and watch him?
Yeah, super. I actually, I it was a Christmas morning. Can't remember what year exactly. It must have been 2017. I remember surfing Rincon, and we kind of made eye contact in the water. And I can't remember how the conversation started, but in that conversation, he invited me to come shape a board with him the following weekend,
Wow.
and um, I was, of course, thrilled to do so. So my dad drove me up, and we shaped a board together, and it was the first asymmetric. I had been wanting to do an asymmetric board. I'd only shaped like a few boards, and so he was just like, "What do you want to shape?" And it's like, "Let's do something asym." And so we did an asymmetric fish, and that was the first really time that I spent with Ryan in the shaping room, and learned so much in that couple hours, more than I had in the past previous months. So um, it was a really cool experience.
What kind of things do you learn from working with Ryan?
A lot of the stuff I learned was planer work. So just being really efficient with the planer and your cuts and how deep you're going and where you're cutting and like where you're putting pressure. I learned a lot about that in that exchange. Yeah. And then a lot of just finish shaping details, uh, techniques and stuff like that.
Interesting. Um, just for the listeners' kind of own edification, the Trimcraft label, Ryan was doing all hand shaping up to a certain point, but there was a demand for his boards that was greater than what he could build with his own hands. And so he developed the Trimcraft label to have a couple of the most popular board models for himself and a couple of other shapers that they would then make stock boards of, right? Mainly stock.
Yeah, I think initially it was yeah, stock boards and boards for shops,
Got it.
and then it eventually custom orders would come through, and those would get fulfilled as well.
Okay. So,
Yeah,
but those designated board models would be made by younger, kind of apprentice shapers in specific regions where those boards were available. So the boards would all be made locally for the local community, but by local shapers. Um, and so obviously you were one of those shapers that he enlisted. But what's amazing about that program, I think, is that it allows you to get numbers under your belt, right? I mean, first of all, it allows the customer to get what they want, which is the model that he wouldn't be able to necessarily build for them. But he's employing you to build it, and you're building it to his specs. And then at the end, you spend time with him and that exact board, and he refines it with you to his specifications, right?
yeah, exactly,
It's an amazing
totally.
program.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah.
Um, I feel super lucky to be a part of that. Uh,
Are
yeah,
you still? Oh,
yes,
okay.
yeah,
Cool.
yeah. It's been great. It's been as with everything the past few months, it's been a little bit slower, but
Yeah.
um, yeah, it's still going, and it definitely allowed me to get numbers and just experience really.
Yeah. And along
Yeah,
that time, I would imagine you're building boards for yourself. Were you also kind of developing the Simon Shapes label at the same time?
yeah, yeah, for sure. It was definitely especially during COVID, um, and yeah, during COVID, basically, it was most of my work was actually the trimcraft work, and
Okay.
then I would do just whatever really came in under my own label, um, which was great actually. It was just awesome to have consistent work that I knew how to do. Really, it was almost just like following the steps, and then on the side, I could do my own stuff and try and develop that and be a little bit more use the more creative side of my brain on that.
Right.
So yeah, it was worked out.